Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Before School podcast. We'll start with a question. What is a mummy's favorite kind of music? Rap. All right, that was the joke of the day. Today we have two awesome guests, Russ and Kyle Allen. Together they are the brothers of the Serpent. They are independent researchers and they lead these awesome tours that go to places where there are ancient megalithic stone structures like Easter Island, Göbekli Tepe, Egypt, Peru. I've been fortunate enough to go on a few of these tours and I learned a ton. We got special access to all these sites and there's so many anomalies. I left both tours with more questions than answers. So I think Kyle and Russ's work is very important because they're coming at it with this very methodical approach. They're measuring things, using modern technology to try to figure out these ancient riddles. So Kyle and Russ have a lot of interesting things to say, and I'm really excited to talk to them. Without further ado, let's dive in. All right, brothers of the Serpent, Russ and Kyle, welcome.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's an honor to have you guys on, and we've traveled the world together. I think this is long overdue, but basically, I discovered Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock through the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yep.
And those podcasts moved me to such a degree that I was like, I need to go on these trips and see these things firsthand. And then that led me to you guys and Uncharted-X. And so I really feel like you guys are kind of like the next generation of the Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson. You guys are really in the field, measuring things, investigating these mysteries. And so I'm thrilled to hear about your work today.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
First of all, that's an incredible compliment. Thank you
Yes.
very much. I mean, those are big footsteps following.
Got to stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you're doing that while you're talking about giants.
Yeah. So thank you for that, man. And it's absolutely it's been a wild ride, and I know we both feel very privileged to be able to
Incredibly blessed.
do this.
Yeah.
And travel, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so we went to the Scablands together,
Yep.
Egypt. I think we went on a couple other geology trips with Randall, but I remember when we went to Egypt, you guys were just measuring everything. You had like tools and you were measuring like sound frequencies and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I was just it was my first time, so I was taking it all in, but you guys were really like measuring things. So I'm like really curious to hear about like the fine details and the discoveries that you've come across, and maybe we can address some of these like bigger mysterious questions around these ancient sites.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the vase research, which we've been involved in as much as possible. I mean, neither one of us are, like engineers or whatever, but we're construction guys, right? So we're used to measuring things, but my dad likes to joke that, when it comes down to the 16ths of an inch, we're just saying like, those are the little marks, like one mark past the big mark. It's like the precision in construction, you're lucky to get within a quarter inch, right? But some of the precision in these ancient artifacts is way, way smaller than that. And this is a fascinating aspect of it. Kyle especially has been, I mean, how many you went to the Petrie.
Oh yeah, with the vase scan.
With the
project?
vase scans, yeah, and then
Artifact Foundation.
Foundation, yeah. So he was in the room helping with the Petrie artifacts in the Petrie Museum, and then also at the Metropolitan Museum.
Yep. Boston Museum of Fine Arts.
Boston Museum of Fine Arts. That's right.
Yeah, and then we did a special Egypt trip where we got to go into places and actually scan some of the larger objects.
Yeah.
That are not, you can't get them into a museum hardly.
Right.
Yeah. So my main thing there was trying to capture photogrammetry, because the scanning doesn't pick up details like the texture, what types of stone it is. You're not going to see any of that. All you have is like a 3D map of the image or of the object. So with photogrammetry, you can get the 3D object, but you can also get the texture. You'll see the way the light reflects. You see all these details about the material itself, which is helpful in analysis. So that was fun. Yeah, I was trying to initially with the vases. I was trying to develop a method of getting photogrammetry of the insides of the vases, because this is the most difficult aspect for scanning. You can't really scan the insides without a CT scanner. So when you go to a small museum like the Petrie Museum, you can't be like, hey, we're going to bring this 1-ton unit in there. No, that's not happening.
So Kyle and Russ,
Yeah.
just real quick, just so people know what we're talking about. What exactly are these vases that you were studying?
Ah,
Should have started there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there are ancient Egypt in multiple sites, but specifically under the Step Pyramid, there were tens of thousands of these objects found, and they are they look like what we would consider to be a vase, a vase. It would, like, you could put flowers in or something, but many of them show the kind of precision that we would associate with machining as opposed to being made by hand. Now, there are some that are obviously made by hand. Usually those are in softer materials like alabaster and limestone, but there are thousands and thousands of vases with aspects of precision that we would associate more with modern machining techniques than handmade techniques that are made in very difficult to work materials like granite, diorite, even corundum, rock crystal, basalt, and it's the precision aspects of these artifacts plus the fact that they're made in material that is very difficult to work. That is very interesting, because just the fact that they're found in the Step Pyramid puts them at a minimum date, like a minimum age, right, of the old kingdom of Egypt. So, 2 to 3,000 BC. But also, it's already acknowledged previously that these things were stored beneath the Step Pyramid as artifacts of an even older period, and some of them have been found in what would otherwise be considered like a primitive grave, right? The person is buried in a fetal position, and around them are like basic pottery elements and, flint tools. But then there's this beautiful stone vase in the grave with them. And some of these graves are dated to like 8,000 BC and older. So they look like this is possible elements of some much older, now almost completely lost ancient civilization that had a technology that would be higher than would be, normally expected by the standard model and standard picture of human development. So Kyle's showing one vase here.
Yeah. So for anybody who's just listening, this is going to be an episode where it might be good to like pull this up on YouTube, because we're going to be showing a lot of visuals, but here's a vase right here. And I remember seeing some of these in the museum in Egypt, and then actually getting my hands on some of them under the Step Pyramid. And I really didn't wrap my mind around how amazing these things were. I kind of just wrote them off as, okay, it's pottery.
Yeah.
But then when you realize that it's not pottery, I think it starts to like set in, because I remember taking a flashlight and going against the surface of these the vases, and they were so thin and precise that you could see the light through the rock.
Yeah.
Then it started to blow me away.
Right. Some of them have been not only worked to a high precision level, but also to an incredible thinness that you don't normally expect to see, especially with these stone types. Plenty of them are also very thick and heavy. I mean, there's some enormous ones, like what you would otherwise call a boulder, but it's been a boulder that's been turned into a vase. But some of them also are very, very thin, and they also can balance. The bottoms of the vases often aren't perfectly flat, but they have a very, very slight roundness, and they will perfectly balance on the tip in the center to where you can spin it, and it will just rotate slowly for a long time, showing that it's not a flat base, but actually has a very slight curve. Lots of aspects like this that show up, especially in high definition digital scans that are, otherwise difficult to measure. But Petrie was talking about these back when he was doing his work, and he was already blown away by this, and he was saying, these are not explained. These are not well explained by the methods that we normally attribute to the ancient Egyptian culture.
Yeah. And we can
Yeah,
show
what is
bit
the mainstream explanation for these?
That it was basically done by, so there are some depictions. I mean, there's one that's used often that shows that they're basically using a kind of rotating, hand tool to work out the interior, and then the exterior is just done by hand over a long period of time, polishing it by hand. But it's basically, they're saying they worked them with primitive copper and stone tools, and then used along, like a hand polishing method with sand. But this doesn't explain the precision aspects of some. They look at the very least like somebody must have been using a lathe, but a lot of these were made in a period where the ancient Egyptians weren't even supposed to have the wheel, much less using the wheel as a tool like a lathe, right? So
I'll show you. This is basically the explanation that is. So it's like carvings or depictions like this. This one,
yeah,
where this guy has this stick that has a sort of bent end like this, where you can grab it and spin it, and then there's these rocks hanging from it that give it inertia, and they have it down in the vase, and they're spinning this thing, and that's what's grinding out the inside of the vase. So this is the way they depicted it in dynastic Egyptian art.
And you can do it that way in soft materials, and there's some very obviously handmade alabaster pieces in plenty of the museums, but you can tell that, well, just by looking at them, that they're sort of wonky.
Yeah, so this is what I want to show you. One of the things that we try to do with the Artifact Foundation is scan the imprecise vases, scan the alabaster ones that we know are from the dynastic period.
Yeah.
There's these pre-dynastic vases, and that's really where the mystery is, because there's this, they go back to this culture, the Nakata culture. And Nakata made pottery as well. But they didn't have the pottery wheel. They weren't throwing pottery, like, spinning it and making it that way. They were doing like, you make the little ropes, you wrap them up and then shape it in that way. So if they didn't have the pottery wheel, then they hadn't developed the ability of turning the work. That's the important thing. You can turn the tool, but you can't turn the work. So some of these artifacts in that period, pre-dynastic, in the Nakata culture, exhibit such high precision in their circularity and the concentricity that suggests turning the work. So how can it be the same people if none of their pottery was even turned, but they're turning stones into the same shaped vases, and then their pottery is made to look like, they painted their pottery to look like granite. They painted all the little speckles all over it. So it looks like the Nakata culture was mimicking, in the best way possible, these pre-existing artifacts that they had, maybe that they had gotten from their ancestors. So that's part of the interesting mystery, is how did the Nakata culture do this, if it's true that they did? And then, of course, you have the dynastic period, where they did have a vase making, manufacturing ability, and they were doing it primarily in alabaster, which is a soft stone. So let me see if I can.
And this goes back to the, Ben from Uncharted X, his whole thing of the tale of two industries. That everywhere you go in Egypt, you see two different kinds of artifacts. Some of, on the one hand, there are these beautiful, precise artifacts made out of all kinds of different, very difficult to work stone. And then there are obviously, like, just by the eye, not precise artifacts. They're still beautiful, but they're made out of soft stones like alabaster and limestone. And so they stand out as a tale of two industries. I also think of it as like, maybe you could think of it as like an advanced cargo cult. The concept of a cargo cult?
No.
Oh, okay. So cargo cult was a term for a phenomenon that happened after World War II. So in World War II, Americans and other nations were landing on islands in some places, like, for example, in the Pacific, where there were some like indigenous people living there in primitive conditions, but the Americans land, they build an airstrip, they bring in airplanes, they bring in all this cargo. They're making a base because they're fighting a war with Japan, right? So they build all this stuff, and they're giving gifts to the islanders, like, well, yes, we're using your island. Here's some candy bars. Here's some other things or whatever. And then eventually the war is over, and the people leave, and the base is abandoned. But then years later, people flying over these islands would look down and see airplanes made out of sticks and runways cut through the jungle. You know, so a runway of grass with airplane made of sticks and other thing. Like, they're trying to bring back these people with the gifts. It's called a cargo cult.
Wow,
right?
I've never heard of that, but that is really fascinating and makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
What you guys are bringing up is something I've debated this topic of like two industries ad nauseum with a bunch of people. But I think what's undeniable is that the older stuff is better built than the newer stuff.
Yeah.
Have you guys noticed that in the places that you've gone around the world?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in some cases, like in Peru, the older stuff is attributed to the newer people, but it's always at the bottom. It's always underneath everything else. So it clearly came first. And often it's so different from the later stuff, which is definitely attributed to the later people that, you know, even though in the standard model they say this is all the same, you can just clearly see, like, no, they didn't have the same abilities. They didn't have the same tools, you know, the same understanding. So, you know, maybe it's not mainstream in some cases, but for sure, even in Egypt, like the pre-dynastic stuff and the a lot of the older period stuff is the best. It's the most impressive, the most difficult engineering. So,
and it's interesting too. Like in Egypt, you're walking around on Giza, and there are some structures like the Valley Temple, for example, that stand out as like it's megalithic. They're working with granite, you know, and then the limestone blocks they were working with are hundreds of tons in some cases, and it's just this enormous structure. And this is supposed to be 4th Dynasty Old Kingdom. And then you walk a little bit away, and there is another supposedly 4th Dynasty Old Kingdom, and it's made with little, you know, well done, like limestone blocks, and it looks completely different. It's a totally different kind of structure. It has almost no erosion on it, as opposed to the Valley Temple, which looks like it's been ravaged by thousands and thousands of years of erosion. And then you see another structure made out of limestone blocks, soft stone, you know, that are brick-sized, large brick-sized, and it's in great condition relative to the Valley Temple, and they're supposed to have been built within the same 100 years as the Valley Temple itself by the same people. And it doesn't make a lot of sense.
yeah.
You know,
It doesn't.
The actual, what I consider to be the actual dynastic structures in Egypt are phenomenal. Like they're really good, but they do not match there's a certain kind of construction in Egypt that sort of stands out from the rest, like places like the Osirian, the Valley Temple, and of course some of the pyramids themselves. Just they don't look the same as the other ones, and it looks like they may actually be much older structures that were then copied in a very sophisticated way by later people.
So let me wrap up this vase thing real quick. I want to show you guys some the differences that we're looking at. Here we go. So this is all the Petrie Museum artifacts. This is one of the more precise pieces, and I'm not even sure what it is. It's hollowed out way down here. It's like more like a traditional vase, unlike some of the rounder ones, but this one's very precise. And as I was playing the video earlier, you can just see the consistency. Even though I'm centering this on this turntable by hand, so it's not perfectly centered. But if you just look at the line on one side, even though it shifts back and forth, you can see that the curve of that line is very consistent, right? It doesn't undulate back and forth. There aren't like flat spots. So this is one of the better pieces. This is another one that's, this is, I think, a basalt piece. And again, at the Petrie Museum, these are Petrie's teaching materials. Most of his best pieces were given away as gifts to dignitaries and things like that throughout his career, and probably are in other museums. But these are just some of the examples. Now, this is one of the most precise pieces. This one's actually in limestone, but again, the curvature of these walls is very consistent across the object. Now you can see a slight deviation here at the lip, but the object's also been broken, and so it's kind of hard to tell. Sometimes they break and then they're glued back together, and it's very well done, so it's difficult to tell. But this is a dynastic period alabaster vase that comes from a tomb that is known from the period where these carvings of these guys spin and stuff. Right, so this is the alabaster stone, which is softer. That is what they mostly made, and you can put a flashlight in this thing and it will shine, but you can see how it's very tilted. It's not straight. And look at the curvature of this wall. Look at how it dips down right here. There's like it's lumpy.
Yeah.
Look at this.
It's obvious
it's not
to the
a consistent,
eye that it's not precise.
It's very obvious to the eye that it is imprecise, way off. Still a beautiful piece, but this is the kind of difference that we're looking at. And then we go over here. There's some bowls. Here's Nakata culture pottery. Now it's the same shape as the typical vase that we see with the lug handles and the holes.
Where is Nakata?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to look at it.
Is that South
Nakata
American
culture
though?
is a pre-dynastic. It's pre-dynastic peoples from the same area.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's in Egypt.
It's in
Yeah.
Egypt. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
specifically like the location, but
Nakata sounded like a South American word to me at first.
you can look it
Yeah.
up.
I'll
Pull
look
it
it
up.
I'll pull it up.
So again, you can see how it's well done, but it's not. You can see there's not consistency in the curvature of the sides. This is one of those pieces that's not like thrown pottery. It is coiled up ropes of clay, smoothed over, or some other method like that, or just shaping it by hand. And some of these I don't have some of these specific types, but they will be speckled. They're like painted to be speckled to look like some of the granite pieces. So that's the difference. And we've scanned these. We've scanned the alabaster. We've scanned the hard stone ones. And there's been some surprising results. Check out Katoi's podcast, Ancient Technology Podcast. He did a pretty good review of the results of some of this stuff and the methodology. And Artifact Foundation as well. So
I really like that analogy of the cargo cult you brought up. I've never heard that story before, but it really, I think it really ties this idea together that at one point there was something very advanced, and a catastrophe or something, or that the culture that built those extremely advanced artifacts left for some reason. Maybe they were wiped out. Maybe they left. And in their place, people kind of inherited those artifacts, those megalithic structures, and then they kind of like crudely mimicked them.
Yes.
For thousands of years and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even and revered them. You know, there's like this whole idea of the, things that were left to us from the gods, right? This is a place of the gods. So it's like they revered whatever. It's possible that they're referring to people that they looked at as gods in a way because of their abilities, because of their knowledge, because of their technology or something like that. And I think that's the case. Like we talk about this idea of ancient archaeology. I love this idea because I feel like we're all the same all throughout time. We're all curious in our heritage. We're interested in our history. We're fascinated by what our ancestors were doing. And I don't think that changes if you go back 10,000 years. People living then would have been fascinated by what their ancestors were doing. And when they found places where clearly there were there were artifacts left from their ancestors who inhabited it, they would have revered those places just like we do today. And people from all over the world are traveling to these ancient sites, looking at this stuff and marveling at the capabilities of these people in the past, and the mysteries that surround all of it. So I think it's the same no matter when. I think that we've looked a lot at Göbekli Tepe, and it seems like, you know, the pre-pottery Neolithic over there were doing the same thing. They were like stewards of this site, and they were trying to keep it up for 2,000 years. They were trying to keep that site
they found
in
it.
order.
And they did multiple rebuilds, repairs, and then they began to, it looks like they may have even began to try to copy the T-pillar shapes.
Yeah.
They were making small ones for their actual places where they lived, you know. So it is a cargo cult-like. But in some
And like you say about Egypt too, the pose, the look
Yeah.
of these statues, I love that. Like they're trying to copy the entire dynastic Egyptian. If these huge hard stone statues that are so well cut, and they have this, you know, just iconic face over and over again, repeated over and over. If those were ancient artifacts found by the early Egyptians, then it's possible that they sort of modeled their elite or their, you know, the kings and everything.
Yeah.
Were trying to look like these things. They wore the headdress. They wore
Exactly.
all of the same stuff. So
Right, because the question is like, well, if the ancient Egyptians that we know of, the dynastics, weren't responsible for these statues, then why do the statues look like the dynastics? And it's like, well, it's the other way around. The dynastics look like the statues, right? The pharaohs do themselves. They're like, you look at this, like that statue at the Ramesseum. I mean, imagine being, you know, like a tribes person in like 8,000 BC coming across this thing out in the desert. It's this massive statue, just like amazing. And you would think this must be an image of a god, you know, and you can see how like this could influence an entire culture, that like, this is what you look like when you're the ruler. You look like this statue because this is one of the gods. And the pharaohs did associate themselves with the gods. They took on new names. They associated themselves with these ancient gods. So yeah, the idea that they were massively influenced by a series of ancient artifacts and ancient structures that they found in this area is, I think, is very compelling.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept about the power of influence and culture.
Yeah.
Where you tend to think about conquest as one army taking over another one, but oftentimes the culture that has the strongest culture will absorb or take over the other one, even if they're conquered physically.
Yeah.
The conquerors will come and say, "Wow, look at these temples.
Yeah.
We should start dressing like they did."
Yes.
And from what I understand, Egypt was taken over militarily many times, but each time the conquering army would be like, "Let's become Egyptian," basically.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I've mentioned this before, that there's something so powerful from ancient Egypt that every time it was conquered, the conquerors became Egyptians rather than imposing their culture on the place. And I think that's the lingering power of whatever this ancient civilization was that has been influencing the entire area from out of the depths of prehistory.
Yeah, I think we see it in modern day. Like when you go to an American government building, it's meant to mimic ancient Rome because that is like the most official, professional, high class thing we can think of. So we're like, let's mimic this prestige, and maybe we'll capture some of that essence.
Right. And that ultimately comes from Egypt, because Rome was influenced heavily by the Greeks, and the Greeks, of course, were all of their thinkers went to Egypt to learn. So it's still working on us. Yeah. I mean, you know, you go to Vegas, you'll see your pyramid, right?
Yeah, especially, I mean, this gets away from ancient civilization stuff, but in our modern times, we're a little lost culturally.
Yeah.
So it seems like we try to grab on to certain periods of the past. Like, okay, I'm going to go to this spiritual retreat and I'm going to pretend like I'm a primitive South American tribesman for a week. You know, I want to capture that period of history. And then, you know, it seems like when your culture is kind of flailing, you reach for something that can tether you.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
that is a good point.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to integrate that one into my.
That's
modern
probably
view. That's
why.
good. I like that a lot.
That's probably why suburban white kids try to mimic like urban hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's way cooler.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be a suburban kid. That's like, yeah, like we play street hockey sometimes. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I
So
think-
so do we? Oh, I was gonna.
I
Go
think
for it.
even the dynastics did this. I mean, they had the intermediary periods where like the country sort of fell apart, and they did the same thing. When the reunification shows up, it's almost always because somebody reached back into the past and said, "We're bringing this more ancient stuff back, and we're going to reunify the country, and we're going to build more temples. We're gonna rebuild these ones that fell down." It's always because they reached back into their past and pulled something out of it.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's like it was happening to them as well.
So it's like a part. It's just part of our human nature that we need for our identity. We need to know. We need to learn something from where we came. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What is going on? Who did all this? And that really is part of every individual's identity, is where they came from, who their parents are, who their grandparents are, so on and so forth. And it's like that actually doesn't really ever stop. It goes all the way back. And that's part of who we are. So maybe that's what it is. We're always trying to fully define ourselves. You know what I mean? The only way to do that is to understand history as best you can as well. I don't think you ever can fully define it, but
Yeah, Graham Hancock talks about this a lot. He says that we are a mystery to ourselves. And I think that, we've been fed this narrative that history is this unbroken line, and it just goes from caveman to modern day advancement, and there's no like hiccups in the whole thing. But we know that within ourselves, we're not just this simple unbroken line. We have a lot of peaks and valleys, and things are really sawtooth. I think Randall Carlson calls it sawtooth.
Yeah.
Where there were peaks. There were times when we might have been quite advanced, and there's like this big blind spot in our history. And I think that's why that idea resonates so deeply, because we are a mystery to ourselves. And there's clearly some big mystery out there that we need to uncover.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think there are more than one. The human timeline keeps getting older. You know, there's another thing Graham Hancock says a lot. Things keep getting older. And one thing that keeps getting older is it's pushing back. How far back do anatomically modern humans go? And it keeps going, it's 50,000, and then 100,000, 120, 160, 240. Now it's 300,000. And it may be more if you look at, if you read Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo, and you look through that, it could be very old. Like, people may have been around a long time. Of course, some of the objects he's looking at in that book may not be from humans. I don't know. But the point is that the farther back you go, the more likely it is that they lived through global upheavals, climate upheavals, something coming from space, the sun messing with climate. There was the 70,000, I think it's 70,000 years ago, there was they think it was a volcanic eruption that caused a bottleneck in the human population down to maybe 6,000 individuals or less globally. Wow. Right? So this has happened multiple times. The end of the Ice Age, where we had this very violent Younger Dryas period, that it destroyed the human population of the world. Especially in the northern hemisphere. We don't know how much yet it affected the southern hemisphere, but it killed a lot of people, along with a lot of species of animals. And the megafauna died out, and humans are megafauna. We qualify. Megafauna is basically defined as any mammal that's any animal that weighs more than 100 pounds as an adult. I mean, it's humans qualify for this, and it killed a lot of us. The Clovis people just vanish; they just completely disappear. Or at least their artifacts do. So
and they basically are found. Their artifacts are found all over the entire United States.
And then there's this horizon, and then it's gone.
So they were a population that they were everywhere in the United States, and they just boom, they just vanish.
Yeah, they just completely.
And then
disappear.
in a lot of these places, like, nobody shows up for 300 years. In the places they inhabited for thousands.
Yeah.
And originally they thought archaeology was, the whole Clovis first thing that they had just shown up, and so they had only been here for not very long.
They showed up, they killed all the mammoths, and then they died.
Yeah. But it turns out, like now that they've been doing all these studies on the footprints at White Sands, those are 20-something thousand years old. So there were people here for 10,000 years before.
At least.
Yeah, at least. That's a long time. That's just incredible to think about. How many people there were, and then they just vanish all at once.
Yeah. So going back to what you were saying about we have this big missing period in our history, and the most recent one probably is this destruction, the Younger Dryas, whatever caused it, and it's both the beginning of it and the end, right? The Younger Dryas period itself is a massive cooling period in the northern hemisphere, but something causes the start of it, and then something also has to cause the end of it. There's two events, plus the period in between them, which would have been a terrible time to be alive, especially in the northern hemisphere for a human. So something causes that and causes this bottleneck in population, causes loss of information. Everyone who dies is losing information. If there's civilizations that existed that were somewhat advanced, maybe they were maritime, they could sail, they had been making maps, they completely disappear. All of that stops, but a few of their artifacts survive. But this could have happened before this too. John Anthony West was convinced that the Sphinx was not 12,000 years old, but more like 36. He thought it came from the previous precessional cycle, not halfway back, but 1.5 precessional cycles ago. So this idea that there's cyclical destructions of the planet is also a very old story that is handed down in myth. And it's possible that comes from people who lived through it, and we're trying to tell future generations, like, you have to watch out, because every once in a while, when things very slowly rotate in the sky and certain things line up, there's going to be a massive destruction, because it's happened 5 times before in our recorded stories. So I think that there are probably multiple destructions, and we may have lost many advanced civilizations in the ancient past.
Yeah, it seems like these ancient civilizations are they were keenly aware of precession, the great year, the 25,000 year where at certain periods of that precessional cycle, we go through space debris, kind of like a car going through an intersection. For the most part, we're just driving out on an old country road, and there's nothing around. But then certain periods of the cycle, it's like going across a busy intersection.
Yeah.
And during those periods are when the Earth is bombarded with asteroids and meteors and all these things. And that's when you have these great global catastrophes. And you can kind of look at a map of the great year, and you can see at certain points on the great year is when we have these like giant floods, giant volcanic eruptions, global earthquakes, things like that. And Randall Carlson, I did a presentation with him many years ago, and he was saying that the human species is about 200,000 years old. And then he mapped out in the last 200,000 years, there have been at least 16 global level catastrophes that on a level where they would wipe out 1,000 cities on Earth today.
Yeah. Exactly. So
that's why there's no history.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's why we don't have a record of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how long, depending on the level of the disaster and the nature of it as well, how long does it take you to rebuild? And how much, by the time you begin to advance again, by the time you begin to let's settle down, let's do agriculture, let's build things instead of just wandering looking for food, right? How long does it take you to start realizing, to begin thinking about the past again, and to begin wondering, and like this is what's happened with us. It's almost like there's been an erasure, like we've lost it so much that now we're having to. The only information about it comes from these really old stories that most people just say, oh, it's just a fairy tale. It's something you tell. It's to scare kids or to make people believe in a god or something. But every ancient text, which many of them may be the basis for religion, but every ancient text is often trying to tell you, like, yes, there was previous destructions. And I think every ancient civilization believed this. It's only recently that it has become more common to not think there was a previous destruction. You know, I think
it seems like the type of thinking that occurs right before the destruction happens.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens in the stories.
That's right.
That's exactly what it is. Actually, in modern civilization, it's like this. We still have like the destruction is coming, but we're causing it, right? And in a way, the old stories would say the same thing, right?
Sometimes,
like your hubris and this and that was going to bring about your own destruction, and we sort of have that going on today, where it's just like, you know, we're all causing the destruction of the world. And I get that. That's fine, but to ignore the possibility of destruction coming from elsewhere is a bit naive, I think.
That's a good point. I think if you look back at all the tales of destruction, that the culture was doing something very wrong before the destruction happened, and it was kind of like their fault. It's not just this act of nature. You think about Atlantis. There's accounts of them living with pride and not in moderation and just sinning and being hedonistic, and then they sink. And you see the same thing with Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like even in modern days, when a hurricane comes through, like Hurricane Katrina, it's not just, oh, it's a hurricane. It's like these corrupt politicians didn't fix the levees, or
Right,
exactly.
you know, it's all these other things about these people sinning that led up to the flood coming through.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's part of that is probably because the survivors wrote the story in the past. You know, the survivors are telling the story, and they're like, yeah, obviously all those people were dumb.
Yeah.
They didn't prepare.
Yeah. Well, and I think, yes, that's right. And there are stories where the primary sin was not believing that the destruction was coming.
Yeah.
You know, there are some interesting Native American ones.
Or they thought it was like hubris. They thought they were more powerful than the gods.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like when you think of this idea of the gods being forces of nature or something, you know, at least in the stories that we're getting from the ancient past, like, yeah, you think you have subdued the universe and it can't affect you anymore. You're all powerful over the universe. You're probably going to die.
Yeah.
So it could.
Do you guys have a theory on what might wipe us out this time? What the next one might be?
It's going to be Atlas, bro.
Three-Eye Atlas.
I haven't paid attention to that at all. Yeah. What's the theory there?
The Imperium is coming.
I mean, you know, the basic idea is that it's another interstellar object and probably just a comet of some kind, but it is weird. It shows some strange material signatures, like it's got a lot of nickel. It's changed colors. It seemed to have a tail that pointed towards the sun instead of away from it for a while before it went into its perihelion around it. But I don't know the latest stuff. I haven't looked at it. But yeah, it starts out interesting because it's interstellar. It's coming. It's going to pass by once and leave and never come back. Right. That's already interesting. So it's 3i, the third interstellar object we've noticed. The first one was Oumuamua. The second one, I can't remember what the name of it was. It was definitely a comet. Oumuamua was weird. The second one was totally not weird. And now we have the third one, and it's also weird. So that I find this is interesting that we've had 3 of these that we've noticed so far, and 2 of them have been very, very strange. That's already very interesting, right?
And when are we set to collide with this or go past it?
Hopefully it doesn't collide with us. It's supposed to have its closest pass by of Earth pretty soon, but it's not going to come close to us. It isn't going to come very close, but the closest pass of Earth will happen pretty soon. I can't remember the exact date, but it went really close to Mars, and then it went around the sun, and now it's on its way out. But we don't have any good photos of it. You know,
we're supposed to take good photos. What's the deal?
The Mars orbiter, I think, was supposed to take some good pictures of it when it was doing its close flyby of Mars, and we haven't really seen any of those yet, as far as I know. But I don't know. I love this kind of thing. And
We
I
had the space shutdown right
Yeah.
when they were supposed to take the photos.
yeah, space completely shut down.
Okay, so I just looked up on NASA. It said the 3i Atlas will reach its closest point to the sun around October 30th, 2025, at a distance of 1.4 AU. That's 130 million miles. But I don't know how. I mean, that's to the sun. I don't know if that's the closest to the Earth.
No, it's not closest to the Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's 1.4, then it's basically 0.4. It's 0.4 AU
Farther out.
farther
than the Earth.
from Earth's orbit. But Earth could
Okay.
have been on the other side of the sun at the time.
Yeah, if you look
It'll-
at its orbital path, it doesn't really come close to Earth.
Okay, here it says it'll get the closest to Earth on December 19th, 2025, at a distance of about 170 million miles.
Yeah, it's not going to get close to us.
Okay.
If it was an interstellar visitor, it was coming to check out Mars. You know, which is interesting because it's like, well, how old is this place? You know, like they're coming by and they're like, oh my God, Mars is
Mars is toast.
Mars is toast. But yeah, it is an interesting object. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if Kyle was making a joke. If 3i
I
Atlas
was.
is gonna,
Yeah, I was saying it's going to attack
It's an alien
us.
spaceship. It's going to attack us. No,
But no, to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, I don't really speculate. I think that obviously impacts from space are highly likely in terms of a global disaster. What else?
the sun.
Yeah, the sun, coronal mass ejection. But I'm trying to think of like what else? What could the Earth do without any exogenic energy? Like, I mean, I guess we could have some crazy. We could have the Yellowstone caldera or whatever just explode.
Yeah, if something like
could
that
happen.
happens, there's also
But it seems to me that like those events were probably caused initially by some impact. Something hit, and then that disrupted the equilibrium on the planet, and then you have massive volcanism episodes that last sometimes millions of years.
I also think
That would
that
not be
a
good.
geomagnetic excursion may be, for a little while. It may not be as violently destructive as an impact, but if the Earth loses most of its magnetic shield for
That'd
a
be
couple of years, it would be really bad for everything living on the surface, because you would just be getting massive amounts of solar radiation. We would only have atmosphere protection rather than magnetic protection. And we need like all the shields we can get because the sun is a deadly laser. So and it looks like we're going into an excursion. You know, the magnetic field has been weakening for a long time, and the North Pole is wandering faster and faster away. You know, they've had to I think it was reset the GPS numbers 10 years earlier than they thought they would because it keeps speeding
It's
up.
accelerating.
Yeah. So if we have a complete flip or even just a temporary loss of the magnetic field, we lose one of our shields against solar and interstellar radiation. And if that lasts for a couple of months or a year, we're in trouble. You need 1 million, what is it?
I don't know.
SPI, what is it? What is the for suntan or the sunscreen?
Oh, SPF?
SPF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need 1 million SPF to go outside. Yeah. Sorry, I could not. I just
Okay,
completely lost the.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I was talking to Graham Hancock about Earth crust displacement as well.
Yep.
You know, like the Earth is kind of like the peel of an orange. And,
Yes.
The center of the orange is the core, but the peel could get displaced from the center and rotate around it. So there's a theory that possibly Antarctica was in the warmer part of the Earth at one point, and this switch could have happened very fast. And there's all these bizarre old maps of Antarctica
Yeah.
without any ice on it. And it's kind of like, well, how do you have a map of Antarctica without ice on it? Unless something very strange happened. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We actually went through that on our show. We did an 11-part series on
Charles Hapgood.
Charles Hapgood's book. Yeah.
What was it? Earth and Upheaval?
Earth? No.
No.
What's
forgot what it
no, we
was.
did 11 parts. We can't even remember the name of the book. It's perfect. Yeah, but his whole idea on Oh, was it Earth in Upheaval?
That's what I was thinking. But...
No, that's Velikovsky.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We also did that.
I'll think
one.
about it.
Yeah, but yeah, that theory is very interesting. I do think he had some pretty compelling evidence in that book. Some of it's outdated.
Oh, is it called Earth Shifting Crust?
Yeah, Earth's Shifting Crust is...
Or by Charles Hapgood, or is it Maps of Ancient Sea Kings?
No, it was...
The Path of the Pole?
Path of the Pole.
Okay. He's got a lot of books. Wow.
Yeah.
Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings was cool, too. That's where he goes through those maps with Antarctica.
I'm planning on doing...
peels the layers on...
I think that's going to be our next
an 11-part series.
Yeah. But Path of the Pole was really good, and he each chapter he's like laying out a different set of information. Some of them are outdated. Like at the time he was writing the book, there was still a huge argument about plate tectonics. But I think he has some really interesting information. But the other thing is that the Earth, we've spent the past 2 million years plus in an ice age, like a long one, with glacial and interglacial periods up and down. I'm sure you've seen the graphs from Randall, right? But even when we're in an interglacial period, when the cold is less, it's still an ice age. But there have been long periods of the Earth having no ice at the poles at all, or very little. So I don't think you need to move Antarctica for it to have had no ice.
Or ice-free coastlines.
That's really what the maps However, the idea that there was ice-free coastlines in Antarctica in the past 2 million years is very unlikely, because we've been in a global ice age for most of the Pliocene, right? Pleistocene. So it's how did Antarctica have ice-free areas recently enough for somebody to have mapped it is the interesting question. And that's where I think the crustal shift comes in.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our modern Holocene period, the last 11,700 years that we've been in, has been relatively calm. It's, the temperature has not fluctuated much. If you look at it on the graph of those ice cores, it's been very stable. And then if you go beyond, earlier than 11,000 years, it's just like chaos and upheaval.
Fluctuations. And
so we're getting into like climate change and all this stuff. People are freaking out over a degree or two, but that's almost the norm, is extreme fluctuation.
Right.
We've been in this very rare period of calmness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that civilization like we know it has popped up in this period. It's been calm, right, for the most part. We had a little ice age, and there were some other things that happened, but those changes were very noticeable. The effects were very noticeable on the civilizations that existed at the time, and yet they were nothing like the changes like you're describing in the past, where it was it's 15 degrees up and down, or 10 to 15 degrees up and down. These changes that happened very quickly. So yes, a change in a degree or so is no problem, and not, it's not out of character for the Earth at all. Really, I think it's more likely that this calm period is going to end.
Yeah. And there is nothing we can do to stop that.
Not a thing we can do. Yeah.
So speaking of a multi-part series, I noticed that you guys had several videos that were quite long on giants.
Oh yeah.
And this is a debate that I find it really interesting, that the idea of giants, is it myth? Is there anything real to this? I'd love to get your take on giants.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely something real, and there was a lot of discoveries of human bones that were abnormally large, especially from the American mounds. A lot of the mounds in the Americas, but also elsewhere. There's been discoveries found around the world of bones of people that were abnormally large. Now, so then the question becomes, well, what is completely out of bounds for what you would expect a human? You got the bell curve. Some people are at the very end of the bell curve, and they might be 8 or 9 feet tall. But this is an abnormal human, right? looking at they have like gigantism, basically a kind of condition. And when you look at their bones, you can see that they had a condition. But the bones that were discovered that were 9, 10, 12 feet tall in some of these mounds did not appear to have like a genetic problem. They appeared to be very healthy and also extremely large. And they were often in the burials were set apart from what you would normally, like a normal human skeleton. People who are 5 to 6 feet tall were buried elsewhere or around the larger skeletons, like they were revering them. There's plenty of reports just from explorers, just coming across like a whole tribe of enormous people. And they describe them as being, and they would draw pictures of them just like really tall compared to the explorers. So you don't have to go far back into history to even find accounts of living giants, groups of them. So I don't know why the subject has become so taboo, but for some reason the entire idea that there were groups of people that were on average 7, 8, 9 feet tall has become just like completely, we're going to throw it out. It's ridiculous. It's utter conspiracy crap. We make jokes about it. People say it was all yellow journalism, that it was just newspapers making up stuff to sell newspapers.
We call it a hoax fad.
Yeah, they had a fad of hoaxes.
They were just, everyone was faking it. Every writer, every newscaster, every construction worker that dug up something, it was all fake.
Every doctor who examined something that, a lot of the stories, it's like it follows this template of like, there's somebody digging a new basement or they're building a road and they make a discovery. They call in the town doctor. The town doctor comes and looks at the bones and he's like, these are human, but this man was 13 feet tall, right? Then they call up the Smithsonian. The guys from the Smithsonian show up. They grab the bones and everyone's very excited that the Smithsonian scientists are going to look at it and let everybody know what the hell's going on. And then the bones go away and they are never seen or heard about ever again. This is like the template for the story, and it happens over and over. You see these accounts, and these days most of those accounts are just like they're just brushed aside as being like, oh, this is just somebody making something up, right? It's a hoax fad, a fad of hoaxes about giants. But even in the Smithsonian's own reports, they had the Bureau of Ethnology in the Smithsonian. You can find their own reports where they report in the mounds of the Americas where they were sending their own guys to dig in the mounds. They were reporting skeletons that were 8 to 9 feet tall in some cases. And they were describing them as extraordinarily large humans in the mounds in the Smithsonian's own reports. So they must have the bones somewhere in their archives. We just haven't seen them in a long time, but it would be great to pull
we
them
have a
out of
joke that it's basically to be disappeared is synonymous with being Smithsonian. Like it's just gonna be Smithsonian.
It's gonna be Smithsonian. Right? It goes into the Smithsonian and disappears without a trace. Yeah.
But if you think about it too, just on a logical basis, like we look at the megafauna, before the end of the Younger Dryas, and there was all kinds of small animals that we have today that were enormous back then. There was basically the same animal, but they were huge. There are different periods of time where animals were massive, and it was the environment usually that seemed to have something to do with that, like the amount of food, the amount of energy, the amount of oxygen, a lot of different factors can determine how big are the animals, how big are the creatures. And so when you go back and you see that, like, there's so giant plants, giant bugs, giant mammals. What is so outrageous about giant hominids? We know that there are monkeys and like species of monkey or in that family that were huge.
Yeah.
So it's
Gigantopithecus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive. So why would it be so outrageous that there would be humans of large stature? We're not even talking about freaking 50 feet. This is what we were trying to figure out. Where do I draw the line?
Where do we draw the line?
15 feet?
It's too tall.
Is that too tall? Can I buy that? I don't know. But 8 and 9 feet average, like groups of people being average 8 and 9 feet tall, no problem. Like, what is the problem?
And a
that.
9 foot tall, like a group of 9 foot tall people would be
Terrifying to encounter in a war scenario.
Yeah. Yes. If they show up on a battlefield, you know, and their axes are basically the size of your body, it's gonna be scary.
Yeah.
Especially considering in the past, people were much smaller than they are today. You know, the average
Yeah,
European
on
man
average.
was like 5'2" back
Right.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's used as an excuse, like, oh, it was an exaggeration, and these explorers were 5 feet tall, and they just found some natives who were healthy and 6'4", and they thought, wow, this person's a giant. But the bones have been measured, you know. And I mean, there are some reports that are difficult to believe. Like, it's tough to believe there was a 25-foot human being. But I can believe 12. You know, 13 feet is like I think probably one of the tallest ones I would accept. I don't know. But at the same time, Kyle's mentioning the megafauna, and, you know, that we have armadillo today, but we know that in the past they were the size of cars. There was a version of them that are the size of a vehicle. So it's like, that's a large difference in size. So is there such a thing as a human that could have been 25 feet tall?
I don't know.
It wouldn't be the same species.
One of my favorite things on this was like in the early days when I was looking into this, I was following the work of Jim Vieira. And of course he's really good friends with
Hugh
Newman. And they do a lot of work together on this topic. And I was watching a presentation by Jim Vieira. I think it was his, I don't remember if he went, if it was the
start out with a TED talk. TEDx talk. Yeah.
Anyway, he quotes Abraham Lincoln's speech, and this is what really just threw me back then. I was just like, this guy. So Abraham Lincoln was very interested in ancient civilizations. He was very interested in the mound culture in the United States. In the United States, American archaeology. He visited a lot of these sites. He was an enthusiast. And he wrote this speech at Niagara Falls that he never actually delivered, but we have the transcript of it. And in the quote in here, he's talking about looking on the falls, gazing upon the falls, and he says, "The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now." So, like, even then, like, this is a presidential speech. Like, he's mentioning this as though it's, like, well known at the time, like, that he's going to deliver this to dignitaries and politicians and the people. Why would he throw some crackpot hoax fad
yellow journalism crap in there? Yeah.
So it's like this has just been memory hold.
Yeah.
Somehow. And I think it has to do with the Bureau of Ethnology. There's I don't want to get political, but there is a fight over, like, who was here first.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a narrative for that. And so they don't want to step on the narrative. That's my opinion. I think that's probably why they disappeared.
So what would the existence of giants do to the narrative? How would it? I don't understand how it would change things much.
Well, there's a couple of things. Like, if they were a different race, if they were a different species of hominid, if their burials were royal at the center of these burial mounds, which appears to be the case, they were the rulers. They were the royalty of the mound culture. We don't have any records of that in modern archaeology. First, it would rewrite American archaeology. Who were these people? Where did they come from? How long have they been here? Were they some remnant of the Clovis culture? Because we know the mounds were started to be built. Like the LSU mound was dated at 14,000 years old. That was the beginning. So who were they? We haven't found a legitimate Clovis person remains. There's been a couple. They're very controversial, and they were children.
Yeah.
But the most the best specimen was like literally dated to around 200 years after the Clovis basically vanished. So I don't know. I'm just Anzic one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool. I mean, I love this kind of mystery. I think it's great. But it does if it's being covered up, it was covered up a long time ago. And maybe it's not even being covered up now. It's just everyone thinks it's
everyone's
BS.
bought the cover story.
Yeah.
At this point.
And so we can't get into the minds of these earlier archaeologists that dismissed it. So I don't know. It's weird that you have all these accounts from pretty reputable sources. And yeah, I think there were some hoaxes as well.
Absolutely. We went through a couple of them.
Yeah.
The Cardiff giant was a hoax.
So you throw the baby out with the bathwater because there's a few hoaxes, and then some journalist did a news story on it, and it was totally fake. And so now all of the stories can be just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it isn't purely a United States phenomenon either.
Right.
I mean, the discoveries of and the stories of giants are global. I mean, like, one of the flood stories that comes out of Mexico is the story of the pyramid of Cholula was built by a giant who survived the flood, and the flood's purpose was to destroy the giants.
That's even biblical. I mean, there's apocryphal texts that talk about the Nephilim, these giants, and they were mating with the humans, and then God decided to destroy the world. Now, if we want to look at it in more like this is we'll look at it with a scientific lens, and maybe there was some inundation, something that happened like the Younger Dryas that caused these floodings that wiped out a bunch of people. And those were the gods who wiped them out. The purpose was to wipe out the giants, and they almost all died. But then it mentions in the biblical text that but some survived.
Yeah.
So there was a remnant left over. And I just find that fascinating if that is true, and that's part of where these people or these skeletons came from. Were they in the Americas? Were they the beginning of the mound culture? Because we don't really know what started all that, and I don't know. A lot has been lost.
Yeah.
So.
And for as what it would change, it's like I think there's political power in the in who was here first, and that's what would change.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think George Orwell has that quote about who controls the past controls the present, something like that. So if you can control the past narrative, you can control how people perceive themselves in the present.
It's 100% true.
Graham talks about this, and so does Randall, that like if there was something in our deep past that was worthy of like reverence, like in other words, if there was some advanced civilization that like mapped the world, built megalithic structures all over the place, put up monuments that later cultures that came thousands of years later have been basing some of their mythology on ever since. If there was a civilization like that, then it would be worth looking at them and saying like, what were they doing? And how did they become like they did? And then where did they go and why did they fall? Like these would be worthy questions to ask. And if somebody in the present doesn't want those questions being asked, because you don't want somebody looking for answers that isn't the power structure that exists now, then this is why it's suppressed. Part of the reason why it's suppressed. Like if you want to be the sole source of any answers for solutions for present problems, you don't want people looking into the past and saying, well, what did they do? Where did they go? What mistakes did they make? And how can we not make those mistakes? Then you aren't looking at modern day authority figures for answers. You're looking at something else, and they don't want that. I mean, this is one possibility.
Yeah. In our modern world, we've adopted this like very materialistic, physical, scientific worldview that's extremely rational. And especially in academia, anybody who dares to take a step away from, people who ask like the deeper questions or dare to get mystical, their careers are ruined because they're kind of like laughed out of the room. So everybody kind of falls in line. And I mean, what goes along with that scientific worldview is that narrative that we are living at the pinnacle of human advancement.
Yeah.
Right.
And that we look back and everything before us was more primitive than we are today.
Right.
I think
Okay.
that's
So
part of that narrative.
yes, this is just reminding me that like when we were in Peru, we were learning about, the Inca and the Spanish. And I think this is a good like example of this type of thing. The Spanish show up and see this, what they think is like this amazing civilization of the Inca, and it's like it's too good. It's too good because the Spanish are supposed to be the pinnacle of civilization at that time. Right? They are better. And so they go to great pains to actually destroy and cover up like the stuff that they couldn't destroy because the stones were too big. They buried it so you couldn't see it, because you don't want your church sitting on top of foundations that are far more advanced than you're able to build. So there's like this,
or they just plaster over the beautiful walls.
they plaster it and make it theirs.
Yeah, so it's like it looks like adobe. You don't even know there's a megalithic wall under there because they just plastered over it, right?
yeah. So it's
Just erasing it.
it is erasing it, but it's also there's just this part of it that's like, well, they can't be greater than us because we are the pinnacle. So it's like this dogmatism is sort of built in. So I think that's kind of maybe, we have that. That's probably, there's some of that being affected or affecting our discovery, affecting our acceptance of what we find. Like when you're looking into the past and you find something, you like, there's, if you have this mentality, there's a tendency to just like, nope, I'm not accepting that. That's not what happened.
It reminds me of a very famous scene in Good Will Hunting where there's this brilliant professor at MIT, and he's like the best mathematician on earth. But then he discovers Good Will Hunting, and this guy can do math formulas, like in his sleep. He can do formulas that this guy could never do. And he, at a period in the movie, he has like a mental breakdown. He's like, I wish I had never met you.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't know you existed because, now I can't sleep at night. No. And there's only a handful of people on earth that could even tell the difference between me and you.
Right.
But that handful is like in this room right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it just destroys his world that there's a guy out there that is better than him at math. And maybe it's, that touches down to, I'm always like looking at things from like a psychology standpoint, a historical. I like to look at things from many angles, and, maybe there's like this deep psychological blind spot or insecurity we have where we don't want to face things that are better than us because it makes us feel inferior.
Yeah. See, but that guy did the right thing because he admitted the truth. He didn't kill the dude and bury him in his backyard. It's vanished. He didn't disappear. He didn't send him to the
Yeah, like you
He
can't
didn't send him to the Smithsonian.
He didn't Smithsonian.
Yeah. So he did the right thing. He admitted it, and that's really the difficult thing to do. What the Spanish did is basically they buried it. They destroyed. They made it their own and pretended like this is our. Like we did this. We conquered them, so we're better. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't like those people. I have this problem with the Spanish.
And this, I think this is what makes the entire conversation difficult. We were just discussing what is the deal with with the giants in North America, and now we're talking about the Spanish coming in with the Inca. So the Spanish are going to try to erase the Inca heritage because they can look at it and see, wow, this is superior to we couldn't. This place looks like it was built by demigods, by demons. The specific quote about Sacsayhuaman. So, but the Inca didn't build that.
Right.
They had already taken it
The Inca
and claimed it was theirs. Or, well, we don't actually know. Like a lot of times they were like, no, we didn't build this. In some of the accounts, but. I think this is the similar thing that was happening with the U.S. is that in some ways, in some ways there was this idea like these people here are savages.
They're savages. They're primitive.
And then, but we keep finding things where you're like, wow, this is like Cahokia.
You get to Cahokia in
you're
up
like,
in Illinois.
well...
And it's this massive city, beautiful, and there's like
Yeah.
20,000 people.
This is not the work of a savage civilization, right?
So, yeah.
But it's abandoned at that point. So it's like, who was it is the question.
Yeah.
And this is when it becomes a difficult.
So this is it's difficult because if you convinced yourself or your civilization was convinced that they were savages and you just wiped them out because they're in the way, we don't want them around, and then you discover later they did magnificent works and a lot of them all over the place. What do you do with that?
Yeah.
Do you admit it to yourself or do you Smithsonian it?
Yeah. Yeah.
As a civilization, as a culture, that's difficult.
Yeah, there's always a drive to dehumanize the other side if you're going to do something bad against them, if you're going to conquer them or objectify them or exploit them in some way. You got to make them seem inferior. But, the opposite, I'm thinking of like the movie Avatar, where we really humanize these blue people. Yeah. And suddenly everybody in the movie theater is like, no, don't destroy this fictitious world. It's, Pandora is better than Earth. I want to live there, protect it. People are freaking out over like the whale that got killed in Avatar. And I'm like, there's whales here. They don't care about those whales.
Yeah. Dude, Avatar was powerful. The utopia that it was, like, for the guy to go into this other alien being, and I don't know, that whole thing. There was really this whole...
He had lost the use of his legs, and then suddenly he's in this giant.
It did so good to give you this feeling of just like, oh man, this is paradise. This is so awesome. And then it's like, okay, now they have to fight, and people have to die. They did a really good job of
I always wonder, I'm like, what happened to directional drilling?
I know. Why do they have to cut
Why
down
do we
the
have
tree?
to like blow up the tree? Just dig. They would never even know.
So I'm curious. I probably should have started with this, but how did you guys even get into this field of studying ancient architecture, ancient megalithic structures, and uncovering these mysteries? What sent you down this road?
Well, why do I always have to tell this story? Okay,
I went first last time.
Well, the area that we I'll just start with this. The area we grew up in Georgia had a lot of arrowheads. I mean, lots. They were relatively easy to find, I would say. There was one flood. It was a little flood where the creek near our house was running really fast, and you could almost literally put your hands in the water down low and just catch rocks in the bottom that were flowing and pull them up. There's arrowheads in there. I mean, it's like, wow. There were a lot of arrowheads. And so Kyle had been, very interested in this for a long time. And I was not as interested in arrowheads as he was, but always interested in this ancient stuff. So what happened to me specifically is we had a very bad car accident in my early 20s, and it broke my back. So I spent a bunch of time in the hospital, and then out of the hospital, I was basically bedridden, or I was hobbling around with a cane, trying to go through physical therapy, learning how to walk again. So I read every book of fiction that I owned for a second or third time. I played every video game that I had, and I kind of ran out of ways to entertain myself when I was, not very mobile. So I got online and started looking up. I was looking for things that were interesting to read about. And, I started looking up like world mysteries. Let's see what's going on, And I started reading about all these world mysteries, and I found a whole bunch of out of place artifacts. The stuff about the giants, of course, lost civilizations, people thinking they discovered cities in the desert, just all kinds of crazy stuff. But so I started out with this wide focus, and then it began to narrow as I got interested in specific things like the construction of certain ancient sites. Of course, there was the idea that was there a possible alien influence in the deep past, this like paleo contact. So we went through a lot of this stuff, ancient aliens, all this kind of things, but it was really like beginning to dial it. I was beginning to dial it in with looking at the precision of some structures, the alignments. And then, of course, we find Randall Carlson. I began reading a bunch of different books. I found Graham Hancock. So I followed this similar path, but it really started when I lost the ability to walk for a while and had to entertain myself. And I ran out of books to read. But with fiction, I was always interested in mysteries. I loved hard science fiction, which was basically the older hard science fiction is the authors would follow current, at the time, current like astronomical science. And so some new object would be discovered or some new idea, and then they would write a short story about somebody encountering this kind of thing in space. And like, I love this, like this idea of exploring the mysteries of the universe. So when I found out that there were legitimate, like real non-fictional mysteries all over the world in the form of like some kind of mysterious lost civilization and ancient structures that no one really understands and no one knows how they were built, I basically lost my interest in fiction and became interested in the mysteries of the real world. I mean, I'm still interested in like non-ancient. I follow missing persons cases, the whole missing 411. I don't know if you know anything about that, but like people who...
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the missing 411, I won't go off into it, but they're strange cases of missing persons, that people who disappear in like national forests in very strange ways, under really weird circumstances. So I'm interested in like all kinds of mysteries like that. And I think that something like the missing 411 may actually point to, something that it may be tangential to this other ancient stuff. I mean, there are plenty of stories that come out of our past of non-human entities messing with people, and they don't have to be aliens, something living underground, something living under the water. Like, how do we know that we're the only highly intelligent species on this planet? I also follow the UFO stuff, so I am interested in this kind of thing. That's my path. I was on a lot of drugs after getting out of the hospital.
I just like arrowheads.
Thank God for that.
What?
I said, thank God for the accident and the drugs.
Yeah.
Yes, because it led you here.
That's right.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's very similar. Like he was talking about the artifacts. Like I just loved finding arrowheads, and then every time I found one, like I got more and more into it, because at first it was just like, oh, sweet, an arrowhead. But the more I got into that, then it was like, well, wait, where were they camping? And then you find an actual campsite, and then or a cave, and I'm like crawling through a cave, and I'm just like picking up arrowheads on there, and I'm just like, oh my God, they were living in here. And then like you start to look at the landscape differently. You're like, okay, this is where they were. What were they doing? And it's just totally just zoning in on this connection with these people that are just they're gone, they're vanished. And then Russ starts coming down to the house and hanging out with me on the weekends, and he's just like, bro, have you looked at this pyramid?
Yeah.
And so we started looking at this stuff together, and it was fascinating to me. And then, when we start arguing with each other about how could it be built? How could this happen? And we had tons of ideas. We had expressed tons of ideas, and we finally actually go to some of these sites. Then we get there and we're like, okay, that idea was wrong.
Yeah.
That idea was wrong.
Everything we thought was
all
wrong.
these ideas were wrong. But then we began to construct develop new ideas that aren't so much like, well, here's how you can lift this stone or blah, blah, blah. But there are sort of fingerprints. If you look at a building, you can tell once you look at construction long enough, which process has to be done first. What type of process must have been done in order to get this effect? And that's the kind of thing we start looking at. And it's actually revealed, I think, quite a few interesting things to us about their methodology. And the more you see that in one place, you can almost instantly recognize it in another completely separate area that wasn't supposed to be the same civilization, that wasn't supposed to be in the even anywhere close in the time period, thousands of years apart. And so we noticed this is, I think this is like sort of the new passion after visiting these sites, is really going into detail about the construction methods.
Yeah.
Because it does reveal things, and it's great. So that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like your approach, because these trips we've been on that you guys host and Uncharted-X hosts and Randall Carlson, it seems to attract all sorts of very interesting, unique people. from like the psychedelic to the woo woo to the aliens to the contractors.
Yeah.
And and I like your approach because you guys seem to really not be in the woo woo camp. I like how you guys are very much let's measure this, let's be methodical about this. Let's see what was built first. Let's just gather as much information as possible, and then we'll put the story together at the end.
Yeah.
Let's not start with the story. It seems I like your approach to things.
Oh, thank you.
I have to say, I have to say on the woo-woo stuff, I have to remind myself that this is also probably part of the story. Like, this is not I'm not looking for evidence of magic or spirits or something like that. However, I'm not opposed to this idea. I'm not opposed to spirituality. I believe in spirituality. I believe in things like that. It's very hard to look for evidence of those things for me. Whereas I can see, like, they cut that corner before they put that block down. Like, that's something I can actually really get my hands on, get my mind around. And I can prove it, basically. I could show, photographs and say, like, this had to have taken place in this way. But we travel with, like you said, a lot of people from different mindsets. And some people on the more spiritual side, like, they have affected me also on these trips. Like, some of the insights that they've gotten, very powerful. And especially because we're also not just talking about construction, but this is a human story. These were people's lives. They're not only were their minds, their spirits and their minds were in this area. They had been revering it for thousands of years or whatever. So there is something to that, I think. I may not be super sensitive to it, but I'm open to it for sure. I think it's cool.
Like, for example, one of the things that we just spent 5 weeks in Peru, and Rogelio and Edgar, our two local guys down there, are really awesome. Rogelio is like the Peruvian Yusuf, right? Yeah. He's really amazing. A lot of the sites we went to, he would, after telling us the history and other things that he knew about it, he would also point and say, like, look how this mountainside looks like a condor, or there's a face on this mountain over here, or look at the pattern of the stones. Do you see the snake, right? Now, those are the kinds of things where I look at it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see how that might look like a face, and then he would say that the ancient peoples put great importance in this, but it's like, I can't tell if, I can't tell what the importance of that is. It's not really something you can measure. And then him saying, well, the reason they put this place here is because look how that is a face and this one is a face, and these people were looking at it. The mountains are actually entities looking at each other. It's like, okay, this is interesting, but you can't. This is like you're saying, you can't measure this.
Can't measure it. Can't prove it.
Can't prove it.
But it's still cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, but you can't really do anything with it. Whereas I can go and look at the blocks and be like, I can see that there's scoop marks on this one, just like we see in Egypt, and that they use similar techniques.
But what do you think? Do you think do you believe in like spirit or a collective consciousness, or any, like, consciousness is non-local, or are we all just meat puppets?
No, I'm actually quite open to the woo-woo stuff as well. I'm glad you said that, because I just find it's good to be balanced. So I appreciate how you guys have, like, 1 foot in the material world and then 1 foot open-minded to the extraordinary things. Whereas, sometimes you get people, mostly in the real world, you get people that are cut off to the woo-woo, and they're like, don't even talk to me about giants. Right. But then, but then you go on our trips and you get people that are way out there. Yeah. That are like, I closed my eyes and I talked to Thoth, and he told me that there's, I like those people a lot. Yeah. But I feel like a balance is necessary. I've heard some extraordinary stories about, I heard a woman who got a head injury in the early 1900s. And after her head injury, she came out of a coma and thought she was this ancient priestess in Egypt.
Seti.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then people thought she was crazy, but she was able to find all these hidden tombs in Egypt.
Yes.
Just by saying, oh yeah, I remember being here. I remember being here in my past life. And
Yeah.
they didn't allow women to be on the sites back then, but she was so accurate with where her predictions were that they were like, all right, let this woman on the site.
This is incredible. So I didn't
she
even know
she became like the number one Egyptologist back then.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you know, I believe in
she thought she was a mistress for Seti the First. And she actually was able to pinpoint places that were completely unknown at the time.
That is amazing. See, this is what I'm saying. You can't, I don't know. It's just,
You can't,
you can't write this stuff off.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it has real world consequences like that too. It's and those sorts of things are amazing. And it's also why, you know, you can't just discount it. But it's also, I'm not psychic.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to just,
I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking, man.
You know what I'm going to say? Yeah. I'm not psychic. So I measure things in the way that I can. Right. But it's also difficult when somebody, like what you're talking about, how somebody will, you know, on these trips, somebody will tell you, oh, I've done this or that. And it's like, it's interesting to listen to, but there's no way to verify often this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's like, what I'm interested in is gathering more data that I can verify.
Right.
Unfortunately, because I'm not psychic, I can't do the psychic stuff. So I have to look at the blocks and the vases. Yeah.
Yeah, but like what you were saying, there are things that are hard to measure, but that greatly affected history. Exactly. I remember I listened to Dan Carlin a lot. He's a great historian.
Oh yeah, man.
And he was talking about an exchange he had with his history professor, and his professor said, "What do you think the influence of magic was on the course of this history here?" And Dan Carlin was like, "What are you talking about? Magic isn't real." And the teacher was like, "I know that, and you know that, but the people back then didn't know that."
Right.
And so you could have a druid wizard guy take a bunch of bones and shake them up and then throw them on the ground. And if they landed a certain way, he's like, okay, we attack at dawn.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, just this like superstitious stuff has a tremendous impact on history about when an army would attack. I mean, it has real world consequences.
Yeah.
That we can't measure today, but back then the belief was incredibly strong.
I love that Dan Carlin.
Yeah.
He throws the bones on the ground. We attack at dawn. Like the way he does it, I'm just like, yes. That's so good.
And yeah, this.
I have this. Can I tell the magic scenario?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So we have this magic scenario. So I do believe in magic. And I think, so if we were going to talk about supernatural or magic or whatever, if it exists, let's take it for granted. The supernatural exists, magic exists. It's all reality. It's all this universe. So then all that means is that there are just things about the universe we haven't actually figured out yet. Right? There's nothing actually
not surprising.
Yeah, it's not doesn't surprise me at all. You can't be if something happens in the universe, it's not supernatural. So the word supernatural is not even a good word. Because if these things are true, they are natural. They're part of the universe. So going with that mindset is like, you can see how there are possibilities of like something that you could legitimately describe as magic. Writing is a form of magic. What are we doing when we're writing? We're spelling stuff. Like you get where this language comes from. So I came up with this scenario where, let's say you go back in time to a period where most people are illiterate. Writing is fairly new. It's mostly the elite. And so you have this wizard guy, this wise man out in a distance away from the capital. And there's peasants out there and they're doing their thing. And this wizard comes up to the peasant and he basically hands him a piece of paper he scratches some stuff on it and he goes, go to the city gates and the guards, you show this to the guards and they will let you in, and they'll take you to the king, right? And hand this to the king, and then he's going to send you whatever. And so this crazy old guy tells this person with a scratching on a piece of paper, he's going to make a whole bunch of things happen. And so the guy just, okay, whatever, this dude's crazy. And then he shows it to the guards, are like, hey, ho there, stop. And then he shows them the piece of paper, and they're like, oh, it's got this old man's seal on it. So they let the guy in the gates, and the dude's just like, oh my God, I just put the magic spell on them.
Yeah.
So you're actually, with writing, it's so interesting because you are changing people's minds. You're changing something non-physical about them by putting a couple of weird marks on a piece of paper. If that's not magic, I don't know what is. And if you think about, if you take it a little further, these spells have actually had the biggest effect on the world of humans for thousands of years. Books,
Yeah. Religious
have
books.
changed. Religious books have caused wars. I mean, millions of people have died because of spells, the scratchings of wizards, wise men.
Yeah.
So that's pretty magical. I mean, they're still affecting us thousands of years later,
Yeah.
causing
You
things
just
to happen.
you just sent off some light bulbs in my mind.
All right.
Hopefully I can articulate this idea. But so if we went back in time and we showed somebody like a phone, they'd be like, "Oh my God, that's magic."
Yeah.
Even today when somebody airdrops me something, I'm like, I don't even know how that's magic right there. And so like, if you went back in time and just showed any technology, a telephone, a TV, whatever, to somebody even a couple hundred years ago, they'd be like, you're a wizard.
Yeah.
But the thing is, every time that we have a big technological innovation, every time we get something like writing or electricity or farming, or we advance in one way, but we actually lose something in a way that's very hard to see. And it's very hard to describe what we lose in the moment, but you can see it later. Like apparently before the invention of writing, people had insanely good memories, like perfect memory. Yeah. But once you could write stuff down, it's like, all right, what's the point of keeping this perfect oral tradition?
Yeah.
What's the point of this perfect memory? So people lost this memory. So I'm just wondering, like, if it's a two-way street, if we could go back in time and somebody, like all the people suddenly have photographic memories, and to us, that's like magic.
Yeah.
Or if, our memory is so stripped bare now because whenever something happens, everybody whips out their phone and has to take a picture of it or else they can't remember it. But like to some ancient person, they're like, why would you ever take a picture? I remember every single thing that's happened in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
To us, that'd be magic. So,
Right now, can they share that picture in their head with someone? See, that's where writing comes in.
They
paint
start
a
painting on
picture.
caves. Yeah.
You can paint a picture in somebody's head, but what you're saying actually is making me think like maybe it's not that we lost something so much, it's that we don't raise those people to the top. Like the guy who can run for 2 days straight through the Andes Mountains is not needed anymore because we have planes and cars. So we don't find those people, we don't train them, we don't raise them up to be like, the king's runner. We don't need the king's runner anymore. What was the other example you had? Great memories.
Yeah.
The people that can remember every single word of a story that they were just told over the campfire, we don't seek them out because we have books and we have recording devices. We don't need it. So maybe that's what, like, we still have these abilities. We just don't.
Yeah.
The people that have them are not special because it's not really needed.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
think,
I'm thinking of Harry. I hate to keep bringing up these like movie references, but I'm thinking of Harry Potter. And just like, if you watch Harry Potter from a very like cynical, rational point of view, you could be like, they send a spell where they're teleported and then they like give a message to somebody. And I'm like, why didn't they just send an email?
Yeah.
Like, or they'll get their wand and they'll like shoot it at somebody. And I'm like, okay, so it's basically a gun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. And then they don't know how to use the actual objects like emails keys, cars.
Yeah.
Cars. Yeah.
They're terrible at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a funny tangent. But
I like it. I'm just, yeah, I think you
You do lose
are
something.
onto something. Yeah, I think we lose something.
Like we were just, Kyle and I've been for a while working with wine, and like the beginning of this process is learning how to farm. Right, we have to grow grapes.
Not easy. As it
Farming
turns
is
out.
not easy, and we were just you were just mentioning like going but you can also see going from a sort of nomadic hunter-gatherer culture to a sedentary agricultural one. By almost any measure, especially if you're using civilization and the ability to build permanent things and grow and pass permanent things on to your descendants in an organized fashion to the point where you end up with cities, right? Agriculture is what you need. You can't do this as a nomadic hunter-gatherer guy. You'll have a culture, you'll have things that you pass on, but they will not be permanent objects in the world. Unless it's like my special spear or something like that. But you also lose a lot of things that you would have to know to be a proper, successful nomadic hunter-gatherer culture.
Yeah.
Like reading the wild animals and understanding their patterns and passages in it. Like once you become a farmer, you don't need that so much. You just need to make sure the wolves don't get your sheep, and how to keep rabbits out of your cabbage or whatever. But like reading the game and looking at, like the kind of things you would need to know as a nomadic person would be lost. That skill would get lost, right?
well, it's funny. I just want to mention about the farming. What we lost is before farming, every single thing had a spirit. There was the spirit of the buffalo, there was the spirit of the tree, spirit of the corn, and everything was like its own god. Everything was very revered. And once we started farming, it was human above the earth, and the buffalo was kind of just meant to pull the plow. It was no longer a god anymore.
Yeah.
And so we lost that. I think it's
plow
called
became the god.
Yeah.
yeah, everything was animated in a way where it had this god spirit in it. And once we moved towards agriculture, it was kind of like man is above everything else.
That's a good point too.
That is a good point.
When you're out in nature, seeing nature as it is, undisturbed by human activity, it feels like there's a spirit to it. Just the way everything is. It's like there's something special about it. And then when you go into an urban area, it doesn't. That feeling is gone. It's
I think it's by design.
all us. It's all man doing this.
Yeah.
So I think,
And when you see wild animals in there, it's weird. It's an
Yeah, it's
aberration.
just,
Like,
whoa,
why
what
is
are
there
you-
a deer in town? Like, why is this bear running around? And yeah, so it's
put it in a zoo.
It's weird.
I think you guys are getting at something that does relate back to the ancient civilizations, though, because we are in a very different state of consciousness than they were back then.
Yeah.
And so if you go to like our modern city, everything is like constructed very quickly. It's temporary. It's meant to be efficient and productive. It's all metal and glass and concrete. And when you walk through like this matrix of a city, you kind of feel like you're temporary and, you're just passing through.
Yeah.
But when you go to these ancient sites and you look at one vase that a guy spent his entire life making, maybe, or one wall of hieroglyphics that, this one section of the wall took 70 years to put together. Like they were operating on a very different time scale than we are, a very different
Yes.
state of consciousness. If you're building a building that your grandfather started building and your son is going to build, and 20 generations from now, you might finish the building. I feel like you're going to have a very different relationship to time and the way you see yourself in the culture or in the civilization, rather than just, I'm here in California. When we have a football stadium that's over 10 years old, we start to
kinda
consider
old.
demolishing it. We're like, what's wrong with this thing? It's only 20 years old.
They're demolishing it all.
Yeah, that's too old.
This reminds me. I went to a cathedral in Italy, and I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Orvieto.
Orvieto. It took them like 300 years to make this thing, and it was hugely impactful when I was there. But the idea that you're going to work on this one building together with a single plan for 300 years, like that wasn't even that long ago. It was like 1100 AD or something, I think, when they finished it, or somewhere around there. So we're talking like less than 1,000 years. There was still this mindset of building for longevity. Like this is going to last forever. So yeah, I agree with you. There's something I mean, even antique furniture, man, it's so much better. You know, they carved the wood, like they got whole actual trees. They didn't use sawdust to glue together some particle board thing and then make it look like wood.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, perhaps
so much has changed. It's just
perhaps this you don't need a high technology that's missing to explain some of these ancient artifacts. Perhaps it's just somebody with a toothpick just stayed there for like 100 years, and then they passed it on to their offspring, and then they sat there with a toothpick, and perhaps it's just a matter of time that we can't even wrap our minds around.
This is one of the reasons why I love the VaseScan project, because it can't, in some cases, it can't be that. Because the precision itself shows you that they must have turned the work, or they had some rigid mounted system. It can't be done by hand, because the hand can't consistently move for generations in a circle of a concentricity that's beneath the naked eye's ability to detect, and actually requires very expensive equipment to even just find out how accurate it is. That's how accurate it is.
It's so accurate, you need very precise measuring equipment.
You couldn't do it with a compass.
Yeah.
Like Flint Dibble suggested, like, well, you just take a compass, It's more accurate than the tip of the lead pencil would be on a piece of paper if you used a compass to make a circle, right? Like we have to have equipment able to scan beyond that thickness of the lead tip of the pencil. This is why it's very suggestive that the tools had to at least be turning the work, which means you need bearings, you need you've built some kind of system that is that has moving parts. It takes multiple ideas to come together to build this tool. Even if they built it out of wood, because as some people have suggested, that they could have made wooden spindles and packed them with cotton and wool and stuff, and you can get a fairly decent bearing that's somewhat rigid for a while. Okay, it's still a lathe. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be turning the work, and then you create the potter's wheel. I mean, these are big advancements in archaeology. So there's just something about the details of these objects that in some cases they can actually tell you that it couldn't have been done purely by the human hand.
And another one sometimes, excuse me, is the alignment of large structures. Like, no amount of hundreds of years is going to let you turn the pyramid to a better alignment than it was before, right? You have to, this is something that time is not going to, you need time to do it, but adding time will not allow you to make it more precise in terms of the alignment, right? So it's like this is something you lay it out, and then it's actually going to get less precise the more time you put into it. You know what I mean? Because the more you add onto the structure, the less precise it's going to be. So you have to get this right the first time, right? The only way you can fix a problem with alignment in that case is to tear it all down and start over. So I don't think that making the alignments, like the cardinal alignments for the pyramids and stuff like that, is something that time, like that generational time, will allow you to make better. Would you agree with that?
Good point. Yeah,
I do, especially like in the foundations. But then I was thinking, like, they were flattening the outside.
Yeah.
So it's insane to think, like, I mean, they had to get it pretty well aligned, but then later that you could actually flatten that face and change the angle, but
That's
very
true.
slightly.
But the
very
alignment
slightly.
we're measuring it from is
From the sockle.
from the sockle.
Yeah.
You can't fix that. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
So it's like, there are a couple of things, but you're right. I think that there is something to be said about artistry and artisan and like really putting the time in and making something as perfect as you can. But there are some things you just can't do. And no amount of time. This is the other argument with we sort of make this also with like moving the heavy blocks. There comes a point in when you're moving a heavy load where it doesn't matter how many guys and how many ropes you have, you can't move it. Right? You need mechanical advantage. You need something besides dudes and ropes. You can't just keep throwing guys at it and saying, well, eventually if I have 1 million dudes, right, we can move this. It doesn't work. There are material failures, or there's not enough
geometrical
room.
problems.
Geometrical problems.
You spread the guys out like this, and now they're pulling against each other because you got 1 million of them. You can't.
Yeah. Or if you put them all on a line, then the
Now
ropes
the
are too
ropes get
long, the
longer.
ropes fail.
Yeah.
So it's like it does. There comes a certain point in moving heavy objects where you just can't do it with this solution. It requires something else. And
we don't know we don't know exactly where is that cutoff point.
Yeah.
It has to be tested. But no one's done that. Like they've moved very small loads and then they're like, oh, okay, well you could do it with 20
scale
tons. You
this
could do
up.
it with 1,000. Like, no, that's not how that works.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I remember on our Egypt trip, there was a few stones that were just so massive that I couldn't wrap my mind around how a primitive culture could ever move this. Like the unfinished obelisk was it's like, this thing is as big as a skyscraper and it's one stone.
Yeah.
Or the colossal statue.
Yep.
I think it was 1,500 tons.
Yep, at the Ramesseum.
And they have images, or they have hieroglyphics showing maybe 100 men pulling a 50-ton stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 50 ton, like something to beyond 1,000 tons is like, you need a crane to move it, or you need something mechanical or beyond what human strength, physical strength can do to move it.
Yeah, you need mechanical advantage. I mean, the Romans moved heavy stuff. You know, another famous example is the is it the Thunderstone?
Is that a Baalbek?
No, the Thunderstone with it's a giant boulder. It's not carved with the statue of like Peter the Great or something on it. It's a gigantic boulder. But that one was moved using metal balls and rails, and like this is a couple hundred years ago. So, but they moved it. It was a very heavy stone, but it took them months and months and months to bring it down from the mountains and get it where they wanted it. The one at Baalbek, nobody knows how those were moved. The trilithon stones are like 900 tons, 800 to 900 tons, the ones that are set in the wall. But then the ones that are still in the quarry are over 1,000. One of them's 1,200, another one maybe 14 to 16, another one might be 18 to 2,000 tons. It's like, how are you planning to move those? I have no idea. And then the unfinished obelisk, now, the argument there is, well, no one moved it. That's true. It's still attached, but somebody thought they could.
They thought they could for
a long time,
a lot of work.
Doing a lot of work. Somebody thought they were going to be able to move it. Right? This is a very important point. The Yangshan Quarry in China. Someone did a lot of cutting of gigantic blocks out. Now they never got moved, and I actually think that those might have been intended to be rock cut.
Mm-hmm.
But the argument now is that they were going to be some kind of monument. But if somebody thought they could move those, they were beyond anything that we've ever looked at. I mean, I don't know if modern culture could come up with a way to move those blocks.
Well, we did an episode with our dad, who is a builder too. He did steel construction, high-rise buildings and stuff, preformed concrete and all this kind of stuff. They would stand up these huge slabs of concrete, and so he's seen a lot of this. We did an episode with him where he he defined the crane that would be necessary to put the capstone on the Great Pyramid.
Block on top of the pyramid.
It's just like, we don't have a crane
that
could do this. Like, we don't have one that could pick up a stone that big and reach out that far and that high and to set it in the middle. But it was just kind of a fun exercise. And then we talked to him about Baalbek, and he had done a job where they built a train bridge that was roughly 1,200 tons. It was roughly the same weight as the Baalbek, the one of those trilithon
Stone of the South. Yeah.
Stone of the South. And he showed us pictures where they to move this, they built it on the shore, and then they put it on a barge and took it out to set the bridge in place. And it was a bridge that would raise up and down for the ships. And a couple of things. They had to have this crazy custom vehicle just to move it a short distance to get it onto the barge, and they had to lay these massive Kevlar mats all over the ground. The vehicle had
18 axles, something like
I think
that.
it had more than that. It was a lot of axles. 18 axles, that's fine. That's a lot. And it tore up all the Kevlar mats when they were moving it.
It destroyed them.
Completely buckled them, tore it all up. And then they're like, yeah, you just wooden rollers. No. Anyways, they get it on the barge and they get it out there. And the things that lift this bridge on a daily basis for the ships to go under is, I think, 16 high tensile strength steel cables that were 2 7/8 inches in diameter. Cables. That's what was picking the bridge up and down.
Using counterweights.
Not hemp and rope. You know what I mean? We were just like, oh my God. 2 7/8 inch high tensile strength steel cables. 16 of them.
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that. We're like, that's one Baalbek block. And that's what the engineers are like, we got to have this, to move this thing. So it's pretty cool to just kind of try to compare like the things we do. We don't have a crane that could set the top stone of the pyramid. I think any crane that would pick up that Baalbek block would have to be a gantry style, like with 4 legs where the block is in the middle. You're not going to get a crane that's got a boom picking that thing up.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
I don't know.
That's
I
well
don't know how they
explained.
did it.
I mean, we're about 2 hours into this podcast, and I haven't even covered many. I wanted to ask you guys about winemaking and the Eleusinian mysteries, King Arthur, Göbekli Tepe, cart ruts. I mean,
sounds like we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Can we do a part 2?
yes. But while we're still here, I do want to ask you about cart ruts.
Okay.
What do you got?
Because I had no idea what they were. I was looking through your videos and I was like, cart ruts? How have I never heard of this? So maybe if you could explain. I purposely did not watch those videos so I could learn it here from you guys. What are they?
Okay, I'll give basically an overview. Around the world, but most famously in Malta, are areas where in stone it looks like vehicles. Like, imagine if you've ever been in an area where you see a car has driven through some mud and then the mud is dried. There are these ruts in the mud, and then the mud is dried and now it's become hardened, and now the ruts are like a semi-permanent feature. There are a lot of places in the world where these are in stone. And it's like various different kinds of stone, but often it's a sedimentary, like a limestone or a sandstone. Or in the case that we went to in Turkey, it was volcanic tuff. So it is rock. It's not a particularly hard kind of rock, but it is stone. And it looks like somebody was driving vehicles through this material before it was hardened. Because the ruts don't look like they were cut. Like you would expect if you saw ruts in stone that they had been cut by somebody. Maybe it was a train track or something, a place where vehicles would drive multiple times in the same exact path. But these ruts will cross each other and spread out and go in and out, back and forth, like it was just vehicles randomly driving through soft material that then hardened later. So this is the question about cart ruts: is what is the process that makes these? How long ago were they made? Because often, when you're looking at the stuff we were looking at in Turkey, the volcanic tuff, I think is estimated to be 10 million years old. Like it was put down as ash, volcanic ash, around 10 million years ago, which was the last time it was soft. So the question is there a method where vehicles can drive over stone and eventually generate ruts, which is difficult to believe? Or is there something else going on? Is the geological timeline wrong?
Let me throw something in here.
Or was somebody here so long ago that they could make ruts in something that was soft before it became stone?
The other problem is, if there were carts, how are they being pulled? Because there's not hoof tracks
Yeah.
in the middle of these things. There's just the wheels.
Yeah.
So there's no pulling of this thing. You know, that's the other issue with it being carts. And another problem on top of that is that there's not when the cart ruts go in a curve, you don't get a doubling of the set like you would if you have a normal cart with the front wheels turning. Because once the front wheels turn, now the front and wheels make two different sets of ruts. You don't see that.
Yeah.
You just see this clean curve as though it was only one axle. Well, then what was pulling the one axle? If it was a one axle chariot or whatever, where's the central trench from the horse or the whatever beast of burden that's going to be pulling this thing that doesn't exist? So then it's like the only way they can make these curves, and they're equidistant, they're parallel, would be more like a train where you have like a truck, like both wheels are turning essentially. The front and the back of the train car, the wheels are turning, following each other on this path. That's hard to control. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are hard to control unless you have rails. There's no rails. So were the ruts carved beforehand? But then you see them crisscrossing. There's dozens of rows of ruts in a line, and it's like, so they never chose to go over the same place.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem likely that it was railed or that it was intentionally cut for a path.
In Malta, in some cases, the ruts go directly off of cliffs. Like you'll be following a set of ruts, and they'll just end at a drop off. Some of them go down into the bay, under the water, and travel all the way across the bay under the water, and then come up on another island, implying that they were made before the water was there for the bay, right? Which would put it in younger Dryas times, or like previous ice age before the ice melted and the sea levels rose.
I will say this: White Sands. We were talking about the footprints earlier. That's all stone now, but 22,000 years ago it was mud. So like it is possible for like sedimentary, like these were lake sediments, varves or whatever.
Lithify.
They lithified in less than 20,000 years. I mean, sure, they were rocks.
Is it really stone?
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't it?
Wow. I don't know.
Pretty sure it's stone.
I have no idea.
Damn it. I gotta look it up now. Okay, continue. Cart ruts are weird.
Well, so what is the mainstream explanation for these cart ruts? What do they think it's for?
Reason they're called cart ruts is because the mainstream explanation is that primitive people with a wooden cart with wooden wheels, and maybe a single, like it's a single axle cart that you could put something on. So let's say that you put some stones on it because you're trying to get them out of your field, and it's got a single axle and it's being pulled by one animal or people, like, you know, holding handles. But then they use the same path over and over and over. The cart went this way and back, and this way and back, and this way and back, and eventually
It's gypsum.
Okay,
It's stone.
It is stone. So eventually it would dig. According to them, the wooden wheels of the cart would dig these very slowly, would dig these ruts into the stone. That's the explanation, and I don't buy it.
No cart. This is why I was bringing up the nature
Where's
of the
animal
tracks.
tracks?
The nature of the tracks would suggest the cart was self-driving, and also had front and rear steering.
Yeah.
So okay, fine.
Well, I could accept the mainstream story if it was just one, two rails all the way through, but the sections where they cross and deviate and go over each other, that's not an efficient route. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. And like I said, some of them go off cliffs, some of them go under the water. In the place in
what do
Turkey,
you guys
we
think?
found there were the place where we visited in Turkey in the Phrygian Valley, there were hundreds of ruts, and they only seem to show up in certain, like when you look at the landscape, they sort of appear only in the areas where this stone is exposed, which makes sense. But that means we just don't know what the full extent of the ruts are. Maybe they're under the sand in the other areas, but there are places where the stone sort of sticks out of the surrounding sandy stuff, and then you can see all these ruts.
Look at this. Look at how deep these are. You can't even...
And they're wide. They're too wide for cartwheels.
If you tried to turn, as this track does, with a wheel that had an axle high enough to go over this, you're looking at the minimum radius of the wheel here.
Yeah.
So that makes the wheel very long this way. And then it's just going to turn inside this narrow channel. No, it's going to get jammed up over here.
Yeah,
that's the other thing you notice. The ruts don't widen at the turns. A lot of cases, they are the same width at the turns that they are in the straightaway, which would not be the case if they were wheeled. They would widen at the turns.
So in some cases, it looks like maybe it was a sled of some kind. But I mean,
Again,
I don't have an answer, bro.
Self-pulling sled? Where's the...
Yeah. What pulls the sled? It's got a big fan on the back.
This is kind of what they looked like overhead, like these crisscrossing in Turkey.
What they look like the most, but it may not be what they are, but what they look like is vehicles driving through soft material.
Very strange vehicles.
Yeah.
And then it somehow hardened later.
Yes, which would imply that they're very old. I mean, maybe not millions of years, but they could be tens of thousands of years old.
That's an interesting one with these square divots.
This one has divots in it.
Okay, that's the drive. See, this is a big gear cog in the middle, and that's what's spinning, pushing the...
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just very strange.
Yeah, I haven't seen these, but maybe I thought it could be used for transporting water, because water cuts through stone pretty well. But I mean, it really does look like two wheels.
That is one explanation that is given. It's not like it is. I would say that is a mainstream explanation, but it's not the primary mainstream explanation. But that it's some kind of irrigation.
The problem with that is they go up and down hill.
They go up and down.
I mean, how's the water going? Like you go,
and it goes
over a hump.
Oh.
It's always two ruts following each other. And they often have the same gauge, like, the distance between the ruts is the same. Like which is, if you're running irrigation, you don't need...
Who designed this irrigation system?
Right, this
Fired.
is terrible irrigation.
That's really weird. So what do you guys think it is?
This is the thing we've been... That's been fun about it, is that every type of scenario we can come up with to explain them, there's another set that is like, nope,
it doesn't fit.
Can't be that.
Yeah. So you're asking what our explanation is, and what we're telling you is we have no idea.
We don't have one. But we can definitely destroy other theories.
It's one of those subjects where we tell our listeners, we're like, send us your best theories. We will destroy them. Because I guarantee you we have a photograph of some ruts that don't fit whatever theory you came up with. Because it's happened to us over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to send me down a rabbit hole after this conversation, because I'd never heard of them before. And they're really, what a mystery.
I wish I would have been prepared for this too, because in Turkey there's one that's like it's like 8 feet deep.
Yeah. And there's scrape marks on the side.
And the side, like about this high up from where the bottoms of the wheels would be, are these grooves in the side, like something was scraping the walls of this trench and then
maybe they just wanted to mess with people in the future.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. It's working.
I used to get off I'd go to the beach and I would dig dinosaur footprints in the sand, and I'd dig them like 20 feet apart. And then I'd kind of just sit back and watch kids go like, whoa, 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 is there a dinosaur here? And I got a thrill out of that. I mean, maybe there's something to that with the ancients. They're like, we're going to confuse some people.
Well, they're in Malta, they're in Turkey, there's some in Spain and Italy. We've visited some sets here in Texas. They're in the Americas as well. So if it was an effort to mess with people, it was global.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was the children, like the young children of the whoever owned the shamir.
Yeah,
this
the
mythical
same
tool
guys
that
who could cut stone.
Yeah, they would take it out. Hey man, let's go out in the desert with the
Make some
shamir, and they'd go out there and just cut some ruts. I don't know.
The explanation for the ones that are found in the Americas are, of course, colonial. That the wagon, the Oregon Trail people, basically, you're taking your wagon from the East Coast to the West, and they just followed the same exact path every time, and you end up with deep ruts in like Austin. There's some going through the river, but instead of crossing the river, which is what do you expect colonial wagons to do? This is what I had to do playing Oregon Trail. You crossed it.
Cross it.
You do not drive down the river, but the tracks go down the riverbed.
Without, again, any depression in the middle.
Right.
Where,
And
or
you're following
yeah,
a track
just-
along, and then it splits, like one curves off and the other one keeps going, and it's like, this doesn't look like colonial.
I wonder if there's some way that mud can turn into stone very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, we've
I
discussed
think
this
it's the
too.
most likely, but it still leaves questions about the nature of the vehicles.
Yeah,
because
they don't even make sense.
There's no animal tracks.
One of the things we noticed about
And especially with the American colonials, those were pulled by multiple, not just one, but you had a covered wagon was pulled by often 4 oxen or whatever.
Yeah.
You have 2 or 4 or horses or whatever, but there's no animal tracks at all. So it's just the wheel
That is
ruts.
strange.
another thing
That's
we
really
noticed
strange.
in Turkey, where the land is sort of undulating like this, the track depth would be almost flat. So as the land went like this, the bottom of the track kind of stayed
Very regular.
very regular.
Or it would just if it went up, like the track would go up a little bit, but not
Yeah.
nearly as much as the
But
land.
basically the depth of the track would get way deeper as the land went up a hill, and
Yeah.
then it would shallow out as it went down. What is
Maybe
this?
it was like an ancient game of marbles or something. They'd roll a marble down it. I don't know.
The other question
It's
is
very strange.
in on Malta, a lot of times they seem to be associated with quarries and the temple sites. Not all of them.
So then they were dragging sleds with stones. and
Right. So was it a function of the quarries and moving the stones for the temples? But then again, like I said, some of them go across the bay under the water.
stuff. Yeah.
So, and off the edges of cliffs. So that's the other question is like, is the cliff new relative to the tracks? Because why did the tracks just go to the edge of the cliff and stop? Like the explanation that it's a cart of some kind doesn't work when it drives off a cliff. It seems like it's something besides a vehicle, unless the vehicle can fly. Why would you have ruts that go right up to the edge of a cliff and maintain their depth?
Yeah.
It's weird. So it seems like the cliff is new. That the land has that the ruts are old enough that the land has shifted since the ruts were made.
Are you guys planning to do a trip out there,
Yes.
like an organized trip?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you
we're
guys
gonna
do
go to-
trips to Peru, Egypt, Scablands, Turkey now,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna add this one.
We're gonna go to Malta.
Let's
Absolutely.
do it.
Yeah. I want to go to Japan.
We want to go to
There's
Lebanon and
tons of-
Jordan.
Yeah. Indonesia. We want.
Oh, are you gonna do the scuba diving in Japan? The
Yeah, I would like to
Oh,
do
Yonaguni?
Yonaguni,
Yeah.
but also there's like the Japanese imperial grounds it's nothing but megaliths. I mean, the palaces are cool, but they're all built on megalithic foundations.
well,
And it's
apparently Graham Hancock's books are the most popular in Japan.
Oh, I
They're
can
like
believe it.
best selling in Japan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
a Japanese entrepreneur that paid for him to go dive
Dive
in
there,
Yonaguni
that's
the
cool.
first time. Yeah, was like, come out here and look at this place. You have to see it. So
Yeah.
I think that the island of Japan has a lot of evidence of an ancient lost civilization, something from way back in the past. So definitely need to go.
I'm
see
in
that.
charge, but I'll go wherever Russ and Ben say we should go.
Yeah, Kyle is in charge.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a testimonial. Your guys' trips are awesome. I can't wait to do another one. I think you guys have Easter Island too, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I can't wait to have you back, man. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Easter Island is going to be, I think it's going to be an extension of a Peru trip because like you basically go from Peru to Easter Island. And
Yeah, it's kind of like a cult you join. Like once you do one trip, you got to just do the next one.
you have to do all of them. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and then you have the Azores, right? Portugal, Azores.
Azores is,
Our good friends over at Grimerica.
yeah, Grimerica. Those guys are doing that with Randall. We haven't gone yet.
Yeah.
I would love to at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got to, any trip that Randall's on is going to be a fun one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the life of the party.
We're trying to get him to Egypt.
Yes.
I would like
Yeah,
to get him to Egypt at least one time.
Oh, I thought he was supposed to be there this year. Did he not go?
Not with us.
Not
I don't,
with us,
I don't
no.
know if he will.
Oh,
No, that was the conference thing.
Oh, yeah. We were supposed to
Yeah.
so
So
he did a
people-
conference
People thought he was going to be present physically, but he did it remotely.
that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we want to get him
Yeah.
there for the full 2 weeks. Down the Nile, come on. Let's go visit the sites. That'll be
Yeah,
fun.
you got to do it soon because that is not a young man's trip.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
Or that's not an old
Not an
man's
old
trip.
man's trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But man, I keep thinking like if the world were, if there is an apocalypse coming or a major catastrophe, you guys are like the type that I'd want to be with because you guys are super knowledgeable. You're builders, you're farmers, you got all this wine. Like you're kind of ready
We
for
got a
it.
bunch of booze, dude. That's for sure.
Plenty of booze.
Well, thank you, man.
Well, thanks,
I appreciate
man.
that.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Well, we didn't get to several of the topics, but that'll be something for another time.
Absolutely.
Man, we'd love to come back.
Would love to
Really
do it again.
appreciate
For
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see you guys on another trip.
All right, man.
Yeah, likewise, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where can people find your stuff?
Brothersoftheserpent.com. It's brothersoftheserpent.com is the easiest way to find us. And we have a brand new website. It's no longer the old. I had it for years. We had this old blogger site, but now we got a brand new spiffy, shiny website. So you can find us there. We're on YouTube, Brothers of the Serpent as well. I'm most active on X. So if you want to look for us there, you can also just search Brothers of the Serpent podcast. SnakeBros also will usually find us, but yeah, we're anywhere. And for the audio show, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're on Spotify. Everything else, just Brothers of the Serpent. That's us.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to give a shout out real quick to my wife, Laura. She actually made a little video on the cart ruts for kids. She has a SnakeBros Kids channel
Snake
she
Bros
started.
Kids, yeah.
So if you got kids that are interested in cart ruts,
I watched a few of her videos on geology, and I mean, I learned a lot. Even though it's meant for kids, I was like, I need this. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing.
yeah,
a
they're
great
good.
job.
They are very informative. It's not, I mean, there's decent vocabulary in there, so you gotta, if you're too young, you have to look up some words. So it's good. It's not a low bar for the kids.
Well, all right, guys. Kyle, Russ, Brothers of the Serpent. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next trip.
All right,
It's been
man.
great,
Thank
Mark.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right.